Before we get started discussing our homework, someone asked a question. Was it you? You asked a question about, we were talking about racism, sexism, ageism, and I was giving the three parts of racism in order to have racism. People confuse prejudice with racism or sexism or ageism. So just to review, when we're talking about racism, you need prejudice, number one. Prejudice backed by social power backed by legal control. Those are the three parts that you need. It's the same thing with sexism. There has to be a prejudice backed by social power, backed by legal control. Now, I think maybe the confusion was to say, okay, look, say, I'm a white woman and how could I know I'm being oppressed. Let's just say I'm being oppressed by men, okay, like societal-wise. But you can also, just remember dualities. We talked about dualities last week. That two things can be true at the same time. That while you were, let's talk about the women's movement to vote in 1920. So white women were campaigning for the vote, all right, because male-dominated society, and they were feeling oppressed. But at the same time, white women had prejudice and social control, a social power over black women. So the black women that wanted to join the movement, when they had marches, black women were required to march at the back of the line. Yeah. So two things can be true, right? You can be oppressed and you can be the oppressor at the same time. Did that clear up any? Because when we're talking about dualities, that's what that is. It's not, it's not the one or the other. Two things can be, and like I said last week, you can be, and I know some wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people, all right? You can be the most wonderful person in the world, but you could still have the racist programming and conscious or subconscious bias, and you're not even aware of it, okay? So two things can be true at the same time, and what we're attempting to do is by investigating, start bringing some of those things up. Things will be coming up for you as you watch some of these videos and you respond to them in your journals. Something might trigger you. You'll know when you're triggered, all right? You might, feel angry or frustrated or whatever. So, and that's good, because that means you've hit on something that might be hidden from you that you need to discover about yourself. This is all about clarity. Everything is about clarity, and it starts with us first. This is it's a spiritual journey. This is more about finding out who we are, what we think, what we believe, and how those beliefs affect the self and how they affect everything and everyone around us. So that's an example of the duality of racism, sexism. Two things can exist at the same time. Another current, there's a movie, the Emmett Till movie coming up. Okay, so, Mississippi, 1957. And Emmett Till, the little 14-year-old from Chicago who was visiting Mississippi from Chicago, was accused of whistling at a white woman. And for that, he was murdered. Now, the woman, Carolyn Bryant, is the one that accused him. And of course, her husband, everyone else backed her up. But here is, in this particular environment, Mississippi was, in 1957, was brutal. And here is another example of, here's the prejudice backed by social power, the people in the town, and then the legal control. The men who were accused were acquitted, even though there was ample evidence that they had committed the crime. So that's where the legal piece came in. So, and another one, the latest, not the latest, but if you are, anybody remember Amy Cooper and Christian Cooper, that whole New York City bird watching incident? You remember that? Did you see the video? The video was ridiculous. If you just go, just put in Amy Cooper in the search, and the video will come up. Oh, well, the story is, if you don't know, here's another example of, here is a white woman who is using her social power. So she's in Central Park, and she has her dog, and her dog is off leash. There's a rule in Central Park that if you're in the bird watching area, then you have to have your dog on a leash. So Christian Cooper, who was a black man and bird watcher, very politely asked her if she could put her dog on a leash, and she went nuts, basically. And that's when he pulled out his cell phone and started recording, because she was using I would call it the trope of what white women have the ability to do, and that is to create a lot of havoc. And basically, it could have, if he hadn't have been filming, it could have turned out very badly. So she was yelling and yelling and says, "I'm going to call the police." So she gets on her cell phone, and then she starts to perform. And she said, "There's an African-American man, and he is threatening me and my dog." Meanwhile, she's virtually strangling her poor dog. She has him on the leash, and she's pulling the leash, and the poor dog he was eventually lying on the ground. He was in bad shape. So, but the thing is, she was charged with filing a police report, a faulty police report. Later, she wasn't given a sentence. They gave her take this course for 5 weeks and you're done, sort of thing. But that's another example of how prejudice, backed by social power and legal control, how that works. So, racism, sexism, ageism also works the same way. So is that clear now? Does everybody get that concept? Okay, let's get to our discussion. Let's talk. Somebody, if you'd like to volunteer the first question. It was Nicole Hannah-Jones, that short video. Anybody want to read what the question was?
Pay attention, that one?
The first, Nicole.
Pay attention to how you feel. Write about the emotions that you experienced during the speech, and try to explore where these feelings may have originated for you.
Okay, good. So, anyone want to talk about it, get any reaction from that? Had you seen this before, by the way? Had you seen this speech that she had given? I think it was last year? No, it was this year, early this year, I think. Any, yes?
I don't know if you knew, but let me think. Cleveland Public Library has speakers, and this coming week, she is going to be an online speaker with talking about the 1619 project. Just information.
Excellent, good information, thank you. Thank you. So anyone want to volunteer? Remember, this is our practice. We're going to practice talking because that really is like the first step when we talk about having a conversation. And this is the safe space. There's nothing you're going to say that I have not heard before, believe me. So, yes?
Well, I was surprised when she compared or named Jim Crow as apartheid. That, I've never made that connection before. That was very powerful. And I also, I liked how she talked about the Black resistance that had occurred throughout, from the beginning of the enslavement process and time. And I thought that was...
What was the first word you said? What a distance. Could you repeat what you said in a quiet voice?
Quite a quiet voice. I'll tell my family you said that. I said that the connection that she made naming Jim Crow apartheid, I thought was powerful, and it gave me a clearer picture, a stronger picture. Even though I read about atrocities, naming it that showed how it was so encompassing. And then the second thing I said was, I liked how she told us to think about the Black resistance that was demonstrated from the beginning and through today, and that's to be admired.
Yeah, yes.
I felt a great deal of sadness at all the suffering, and the stories about resistance struck me as well because I was astonished that I was so ignorant of all of that, and somewhat confused and questioning about how on earth one could actually make reparations work while acknowledging that they are deserved.
I sometimes think I know it all because I've done a lot of reading, research, this, that, and the other. So I was surprised by a lot of new things I learned, which I shouldn't have been, but I was. And just a couple of those, that 15 million people crossed the transatlantic for slavery, and they called it the largest forced migration, 15 million. That it was economic enslavement, that the ocean was the final resting place for thousands, that racial caste system, the African diaspora in America, just new phrases to be aware.
Good, excellent. Anyone else?
I'll go.
Yeah.
I felt pride that she was allowed to recognize these things. When she first started to speak, I was like, yeah, right, speak on it. And then I was a little taken aback when she said, a country that thinks of itself as the freest country in the world. And I was like, wait a minute, oh, hell yeah, hell yeah. And so I had like two emotions right at the same time. And then, again, at the end, I was feeling very happy and glad that she could speak her truth.
Yeah, good. Anybody else? Yeah.
I too have read a lot of similar stories or articles and books in discussion groups, and what I come away with is that we have to know the history before we can acknowledge and do anything about the present. And that's what we need to do for ourselves and for what we're here for, is that we have to learn the history before we can acknowledge and put it in our hearts and what to do now.
Yeah. Yes.
I was drawn to the fact that since there are 250 years of free nation, so we are not experiencing that. So it's simply changing from direct enslavement to the use of economy and violence to continue with the process of discrimination. So that's kind of makes me very frustrated. So when is it going to end? And how is it going to end? Who are those that will help to end this?
Anyone else? Just speak right up.
I got something to say.
Yes.
I had a teacher at Tri-C, and he was from Tanzania. He told me women were really treated good in his country, Africa, Tanzania area. But he said that as Americans, we were not treated. I don't know what that was about, but that's what he told me.
About what you know and what you don't know, you have to understand, and we're going to get to systemic racism. We're going to get to that, okay? But the system is not broken. The system is working exactly as it's supposed to work, and that is to keep everyone ignorant. You can't keep this enterprise going if everyone really knew the truth about what happened. If you knew everything, you would be absolutely outraged. And so you have been kept in the dark, so to speak. That's why there is a concerted effort now more than ever to take any kind of Black-focused history out of the schools. They are banning books. There are 36 states right now in this country that have laws. The people gathered in the school boards to make sure that all of our history is not presented. There's a reason you don't know what you don't know. There's a reason. So I always like to, I don't know if comfort is the right word, because one of the things that we really have to get rid of the feelings of guilt and shame and all of this, because it gets in your way. It gets in your way. Just like I said it last week, part of the class here is just to somehow go inside and let it go. You were not responsible. And that's the part that you really have to work on, okay? Because that's what keeps people silent. Those feelings of, shame and, all the terrible things that had happened, etc., and associating that with, I'm white, so, and that we'll get into children in next time also. But all of those feelings, they get in the way of you being able to do some internal investigating along with doing this kind of work where you are learning what is going on. Because it is important. In order to help people, you have to know what happened. Why do people act or react the way they do? There's a reason. But you were kept out of the loop because it was not economically feasible to keep you informed. Everything would fall apart. You cannot enslave 4 million men, women, and children. You had to keep the cognitive dissonance going. You had to keep, let's put it this way, one of the things people are afraid of, they're afraid to be wrong. And that's where the defensiveness comes from. Let's just change that and just say, you know what? We were misinformed of the past on purpose. It was definitely on purpose. As we get into structural racism, I believe that's the third segment, you will see how everything worked perfectly to keep that system going. So you were misinformed, and when I talked last week about the 400-year commercial, that's what it was. For 400 years, you were told all kinds of things that were not true. And when I gave you that sheet on cognitive dissonance, is that your feeling about a person is one thing, but then there's all this conflicting information. Which one am I supposed to believe? Believe your heart. Your heart is your ultimate authority. What you're feeling is your truth. And that's something that you could use when, when people are talking about guiding children through this. You help them to, and in fact, children, you don't have to help them at all. They're there already. It's the confusing and conflicting information that they get that begins to confuse them. But they're already there. But it is about following your heart, because that is what will move everything forward. So they can throw out all of the misinformation that they want, but you know what the truth is. Your heart tells you. It really is that simple. But fear keeps you saying, well, what should I believe? And then you're getting in your head. So you want to get out of your head and into here. Because here is your, people say, and people say, your gut feel. Okay, go by your gut then too. All right. But that's where your truth is. So, okay. So that was Nicole Hannah Jones. And so the second one was what? White fragility. Robin DiAngelo. Yeah, that one, and this one was very important because I wanted you to, when we talk about conscious and unconscious bias and all the things that the misinformation, etc., she really unpacks all of that and she lays it all out. What did you think about her information, her presentation? What do you think about her?
Excellent. That's,
You think she was pretty clear through the information that she was giving? She was pretty clear. I'm going to make you talk.
I guess I just was not aware. I mean, she did a good job of talking about all the things that I say to myself, you know, and sort of discounting them. But those are inherently things that we have learned, and it just kind of broke down that awareness.
I feel like we told our children, you need to treat everybody the same. Treat everybody with respect as a human being. And so in her video, when she says, that comment, I was taught to teach everyone the same, is something that will tell a black person, oh my golly, this person doesn't get it at all. And I thought, okay, she's talking to, so some of the things that she said here, I thought I was trying to be an anti-racist. I guess that was something that, you know, made me realize, I mean, there's a lot I need to learn. And when she said, I'm not the choir and neither are you. So there were some things that really, I had never read her because I heard people say, well, she's a white woman talking about this, and so she was kind of discounted. But I certainly, there are many things that struck home.
I chose her because she's a good example of speaking clearly. She didn't seem to be shy at all about speaking about race. She was a good example of, okay, just speak. Just talk. Here's the truth. Let's talk. Because that is the only way that we all can come out of this insanity that has been created in this country. So she's a good example. I chose her because she was very clear. I think the point that she was making was that where people will tell their children one thing, treat everyone the same, and treat everyone with respect. At the same time, while they're saying that, they're living in virtual segregation. All white neighborhood, all white school, all white church. Everywhere they go, they'll go to a wedding, they'll go, all white people. And so it leaves the child with, okay, so my parents say this, but their life, the life that they're living, is giving me another perspective. It's like, well, there's no black people in my parents' life. If everyone is the same, how come we're living in, and they won't say segregation, but they notice. Kids watch everything. They take in everything. So I think what D'Angelo is saying is that we're putting out a message, but then it is obvious that it's not being lived. And that's the point, you know, so children, when we go back to, if we were talking about children, is that they can see. They can, and if it is not, if you don't correct it, they will come to their own conclusions as to why. And that's why it's important to begin to have that conversation where you really have to start talking about what is it I know, what is it I don't know, and sometimes I don't know what I don't know. But it is about, education is number one. That as you begin to educate yourself, then when your children ask questions, you can come up with some answers, or you know enough to lead them to, well, we could get the answer here. Yes.
I was in a group of people from another church, and this one woman said that when they live in Reconstruction, and she said when she went to college, she said she found a whole different world. And the daughter was literally astonished. It was in a high state. She was literally astonished with all. Now, can you imagine being in such a situation where she was learning fast, but I mean, there's a whole world out there that she just looks on. I thought how sad that was for her. I was very upset about it.
Well, I mean, that's what growing up and getting out of the house and starting to learn about other people, other points of view, other worlds, so to speak, that's what it's about. Do you see? Yes.
Can you summarize what she said? I couldn't hear it.
Well, she was talking about someone that had gone to college, and that it was probably the first time, having lived in a segregated life up to that point, when she got to college, the world was like exposed to her at the age of 18 or whatever. She, for the first time, met people from other backgrounds, other races, other cultures. And it was somewhat of a culture shock to her. But as I was saying, that's what, growing up and getting out of the house is about.
But the thing about it was that the daughter was grateful for this. She was glad that she was learning about this, because she felt that she had been cheated in some way by never having had the experience.
Yes.
Angelo emphasized the fact that racism is systemic, and that it is like a state-sanctioned, organized crime.
Yes.
And she went ahead to mention some examples in employment sectors, in training, school admissions, and all of those things, and you find racism in all of those things, and that those people who perpetrate these things are benefiting from the same system. And that is the main reason for continuing with the process of racism.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That racist systems, that's basically how everything is made up here in this country. There is Neely Fuller Jr. I had a little quote on one of these papers. Remember, if you do not understand racism, white supremacy, what it is and how it works, then everything that you think you know will only confuse you. His name is Neely Fuller Jr. You can look him up on YouTube. He is a wonderful thinker and philosopher. But he had like every area, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. There are 9 areas of human interaction, as he calls it, and all of them are manipulated. All of them are racist. The question that, let's go on with one more comment. Anybody have another comment with Dr. D'Angelo before we go on to the next? Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I thought she did a good job repeatedly sort of hammering home the fact that the reason we don't know what we don't know is because of exactly what you've been saying, David, what you said, because we have been brought up in that. And I felt like she'd be talking and you might kind of slip away from remembering that, and then she would say something again, namely, this is all intentional. And I just thought, to be among the white people sitting in that room and hear again and again, I'm talking to you about you, and we have to own this. I thought it must have been an amazingly powerful and all sorts of other emotions experience. But I think, Cindy, going back to what you said, where she has been discounted because she's a white person writing about this, I think white people need to hear that from a white person, and I just think, like you said at the very beginning, she's not afraid to have this conversation. And what struck me throughout watching her video last night was just the number of times that she brings that up again.
Yes.
The reason we have the systemic evil system we have is intentional, and it's because we have not been brought up or educated to know otherwise.
On purpose. You have to remember that. This is a system. And when, this is a good time to bring up whiteness. You've heard, it's whiteness. Okay, what is whiteness? This is the system to keep all of this. It's invisible to you. That's on purpose. Whiteness is the norm. It's normative. So your life, for example, we'll just talk about the caste system for a minute. In the United States, it's white males, white females, black. We're just going to talk about white, black here. Black males, black female, and black female is on the bottom of the caste system globally. Okay. So a white male gets 100% of the dollar. White female, 79 cents. Black male, slightly below that. Black female, 68 cents on the dollar. So we have a caste system. And so you see the life that you live, you're thinking, well, everybody, I have this job, we all get paid the same. White women know that's not true. Black women know that's not true. Everybody knows it's not true. We all get paid the same. We're able to have this specific kind of lifestyle because of that. But what is invisible to you is that the person who comes in with a college degree, a black person that comes in with a college degree is making 68 cents to the dollar. And the white male that's coming in with the college degree is making the whole dollar. So the gap, when we talk about the economic gap, the gap in the lifestyle, we both have college degrees. So that's why a lot of times the white people will look around, well, what's the problem? You got your college degree, you not realizing what's invisible is the gauntlet that a black person would have to go through in order to get to that point of getting the college degree. if I had 50 hours, I can tell you, it might not be enough time to tell you my college experiences at John Carroll. Suffice to say that graduating with PTSD and not being able to work because the racism was so bad. I was just a wreck, just total wreck. Graduated with honors, but couldn't work for a couple of years. But then he said, well, look, you got a college degree, but what's invisible, the invisible part to you is the racism. I call it, and I just call it the gauntlet, that what everything that you have to go through, the mental and the emotional and the psychological torture, almost, that one has, that experiences going after, say, the same degree. Being under the pressure of representing your entire race. So you don't have to do that. You're used to being an individual. A person of color doesn't have that luxury of being an individual. The pressure is always there that you do not belong. And so your whole time, you're not just going to school. You have to go through all of these other layers of what being in this skin means to the outer society. So you have to deal with all of that along with your coursework every moment. Every moment. So if you get in on a scholarship, they're all watching because you're in our space and you don't belong here. So the pressure is you won't make it. We don't want you to make it because if you make it, then that means, because what we have been told is that we are superior. See, this is the pressure that is what racism is. It is that pressure. It is what makes white people so angry when black people are successful. And we will get into that there's another class and we'll specifically get into that. But it's because you've been told a lie. You've been told a lie. And what's interesting is that you can watch that operate right now. So we're not even talking about the past. We're talking about right now. And I think that's what D'Angelo was talking about. Hey, right now, these things are happening. So we can watch, okay, we're going to ban books, we're going to burn books, we're going to do everything we can to control the narrative. Whoever controls the narrative in a system has the power. That's what the fight is about. No matter whether in 2042 white people may be in the minority, doesn't matter. Can you say South Africa? Okay. So, but who holds the power? Who controls the narrative? That's what this is all about. So if you are going to, you want to do this work, then this is the basic thing that you have to know. This is what the real battle is. It's about control. It has always been about control, and it has been about power. Who controls the narrative wins. So we have to stamp out, and this is the thinking, they have to stamp out any narrative that is opposite of the one that they want to present. So that's the bottom line. And so D'Angelo was talking about when she was talking about system. Remember, didn't she use the dock?
Yeah.
Yeah, when she was talking about and everything that was underneath the dock. Yeah. Right. So this is about helping you to open your eyes to what's below the surface. Okay? Because that is what's below the surface, all that stuff. So let's move on. Our last film, now this was real talk. That's what I loved about this. Allies or all lies. This was real talk. Dr. Joy DeGruy, if you remember, there were 9 people there. She was the one, the top row in the middle. Her daughter, Bahia, they are Baha'is. So I like that because it's a different perspective.
What does that mean?
Baha'i is a religion. It's basically out of Persia. Yeah.
BHAI?
Yeah, don't look at me, I can't remember how to spell it. Yeah, I know there's an AI in there somewhere. Yeah. I liked it because it was another religious perspective. And then, there are all kinds of different people. But there was definitely a lot of truth being thrown down on that one. What did you think about what they had to say about allyship?
I responded to it a lot because I do think it's a careful line to tread to be checking boxes and saying we're an ally and getting those badges of honor, kind of, you've read this book or you've done that, but is it really sinking in? Are you really doing something? And I think it kind of connects for me, the last topic a little bit, with, are you actively delving in and trying to unveil that racism? Because even the most benign thing, like let's say you watch a movie, you are being educated by that film, whether you realize it or not, in a certain way. I think one of the example that comes to my mind is something that seems really has nothing to do with racism. Let's say Apollo 13. We talk about this with our daughter a lot because she's interested in that. I can't remember if there's anyone of color in that movie, but I know when I go back and talk about who did certain things within the space race, you've got Catherine, and I can't remember her last name, Johnson. Yeah, who was a person of color who actually would have been in that film because what she did was portrayed in there, and that was a decision that someone made to write that out and put in some
10 white men
10 white
instead.
people to do the same job. But that's a choice that someone made, and that's not something I ever knew for a long time. Like, I never put it together that those are the same things. So to like be an ally and say that it's more. You have to really unveil those things and start to re-educate, because especially with our children, I really hate the phrase that kids don't grow up racist unless you teach them as a parent. But at the same time, they are so infiltrated, and so are we all, with all of these concepts, that you have to teach them love. You can't not teach them love of others, and you can't just leave it and expect that they're going to grow up not racist because they see that hatred in the world, whether you teach it to them or not. And they see the differences.
Leah,
Yeah.
in that film was this woman who was black, was she not only wiped out because she was black, but also because she was a woman?
Probably both, yeah.
So there were two factors there.
Katherine Johnson was arguably the smartest human being to ever come out of the state of West Virginia. And it took to her 104th birthday for her to get any kind of recognition and awards, or right after she passed. And I mean, she is the champion of the space race.
So she,
Kind of important in 20th century history.
Right,
her race and her sex.
which would be why she's on the lowest,
Yes.
because she would have been.
It's the caste system.
Yeah.
And as I said, if you're a black woman globally, you are on the bottom of the caste system.
And
Yeah, yeah, a black woman, exactly. Now, what we're gonna, when you said teach, we have to teach children, I'm going to substitute the word show. We have to show them, we have to demonstrate to them. They will follow. There's the doll study. It came out in the 1940s, two black psychologists, Clark. And what it showed, is anyone here familiar with that? The doll study? So they have dolls lined up in a range of colors from white to very dark. And then they had black children, and they would ask the black children, who's the good doll? And every child pointed to the white doll. And who's the bad doll? And every child pointed to the black doll. By the age of 3 to 4, your children know it is better to be white. By the age of 3 to 4. They know. How did they get? Doesn't matter what you told them. Look at the images. Images are extremely powerful. Look at the images that they see. What do they see on television? What do they see in movies? What do they see in books? If they're watching YouTube videos all day, what do they see? It's very plain. From 3, again, this is deliberate. See, part of this work is being able to see what you could not see before. That's what this is about. Because it has been playing for, the 400-year commercial has been playing for 400 years. So the work is, what is it, what is the underlying message that the media is trying to put out there without, they never have to come out and say. Do you know that the message is so strong? What is it's the Little Mermaid, the new Little Mermaid, or they have this beautiful, beautiful young black actress who's playing the mermaid, right? Disney got so much pushback on it that they had to remove the trailer. 2022, here we are. There was so much pushback that a fictional character, this is a mermaid, people, this is a mermaid, okay? It's a fictional character, and she's not white. And people lost. Remember when Annie came out? Oh my God.
Well, why did Disney fold?
Pressure. It's all about money.
I know, but
It's about money. Always.
I get it.
Yes, it's definitely about money. And so, but yeah, people lost it. And so they had, and at the same time, I was, as I was watching some videos, I saw a video, someone had made a compilation of young black girls watching that trailer for the first time. Did you see that?
I did.
That Yes.
Excited.
That was amazing. Representation matters. There was one young lady, she looked like, remember that she had piercings and everything? She was crying. She was like in tears. You know, and there were children that were like, one was jumping on the couch, screaming, "Mom, she's black! She's black!" And she was jumping up and down, and there were little girls that were sitting on the couch and they were screaming with excitement. Oh my God! You know? So, you know, when we talk about images, they have permeated because the media is part of that system. And so the message is, you know, if the message is all about whiteness is this. It's the same message in 1681 when the miscegenation law came out that said that you had to identify as white, that you are no longer French, you are no longer Swedish, you are no longer British, you are no longer German, you were white. And since we talked about this last class, the miscegenation law that came down in the colonies from the British government to the colonies in 1681. And that is where white and black were created. And is working perfectly. There is system, like I said, the system is not broken. It is operating perfectly. Right, so how do we dismantle the system? Some of it can be dismantled, well, basically it needs to be destroyed and another one created. I think Wilkerson in her book, Cast, when she talked about the old house, that you inherited this old house. And, you know, the pipes are, you know, the plaster's falling off and the structure's not good, etc. And you inherited this house. And there's some things that you can fix, but other things that you cannot, that you have to rebuild from the ground up. And that's basically where we are here in the country right now. And again, it's being shown to you very plainly, you know, that, hey, this is the narrative that we want to have, and we will do whatever it is possible to do in order to keep that narrative going. So, in terms of getting just if you had anybody anything else to say about,
I was just going to say about this was perfectly, beautifully displayed in the Senate after the latest Supreme Court justice was voted to go on the Supreme Court. All the Republican senators left the Senate. They walked out. They walked out of it. And this gifted, beautiful person who's on our Supreme Court now, the senators, the Republican senators walked out of the Senate after the vote was taken. I thought that was absolutely awful.
well, there's nothing to hide anymore. I think everything, the cover has been pulled off. Everyone can see this is what's happening. So the question is, so what are we going to do about it? That is the question. This is a good start, but there is work involved in order to uncover the programming. I mean, it's work. It is work that you really do have to focus and continue to learn. Know that you're going to make mistakes, but so what? Basically. Yes?
I liked in the Zoom video, and this goes to what you're talking about, this being work, where they were using the word accomplice
Yes.
rather than ally.
Yes.
Because to me, that feels much more like an action word.
Absolutely.
Than ally.
Absolutely. I like that in the video. They did say accomplice. I never liked the word ally, and I called it the allyship program only because I felt that was something that people would recognize. So I use the word, but it's not an action word for me. It's pretty, yes?
So what I got from the last one, the Zoom one, that just kind of hit me right near the end when they really started going, and after Alec talked, et cetera, was that, I'm a white male, just on the top of the food chain, and I was raised in a very liberal environment to, see no color, don't be prejudiced, be active, et cetera, et cetera. But what struck me was I'm like a fish in water. I don't see the water.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that I'm so, like they said, centered. I'm in the center, and I don't even know I'm in the center.
Right.
And that was very helpful to me, because I'm thinking, well, I've always supported this cause, and I've done this and done that, but it's not mine to give back. And they said that it's there, and I thought that was helpful.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. I don't even see it. And and I'm somebody who's trying to undo it, and I don't see it. Let alone the ones who don't even try.
Right.
I thought that was helpful.
Yeah, and it is work. And I mean, that's the reason, having these videos, having you write your thoughts down, etc., is we're trying to uncover some of the things that you don't see, you never thought of. How could you? How could you? You were not taught to do that. And so you don't even know what questions to ask to begin to uncover some of the things. When you don't know what you don't know, it's not your fault. You see? And so this is just a taste, like a little diagram of, okay, in what way can we begin to attack these issues? So this is just a start, but some of these videos, and I will give you at the end, I will give you a list of authors, other videos to watch, so you can begin to expand your knowledge. There is a Black Star Network, which is totally owned. Roland S. Martin, I don't know whether you know Roland Martin, but he used to be on CNN several years ago. But he now has his own news station, so he can basically speak the truth. And so there are other sources where you can get information besides MSNBC. Again, that's the company line. So you have to dig deeper. So there are sources that you can go to where you can get more information. So you have the homework for next. I call this is the juicy one. This one, really, this is some intense information, especially the Reconstruction, which was, I chose this one. It's 2 hours and 41 minutes, but let me tell you, it is one of the most thorough videos that I've ever seen on the Reconstruction period. You want to know how we got here, then that video will definitely, they were very, very, very clear about that whole process after the Civil War, what happened from 1863, so to speak, 1863, 1865 to 1877. Very, very, very crucial period. But it formed the way going forward politically. When people talk about how Republican and the Democrats kind of switched, this is where this began. This is when the Southern Democrats gained power. And that is the narrative that we're being exposed to right now, basically. So. I could do this forever, but the game is at 1 today.
Yeah.
What we're supposed to do next time.
for next time. Here's the, oh, wait a minute. I will give you.
Thank you, Patricia.
Okay.
Thank you.